from a bunch of headlines, there's a tsunami of evictions coming. I once mentioned that to you in a conversation or an email, and got a blast back from you suggesting maybe it's all a myth and there is no tsunami. What are your thoughts on the coming tsunami of evictions?
Absolutely no tsunami, as I predicted. Back in the beginning, when they sent us all home and we were all afraid, maybe not you too, but definitely me, it felt as if you walked out your front door, the COVID was going to come and kill you. You know, that's why there's no cars on the 405. Everyone might act brave now, but at that time, I believe that's how we felt. So at that time, when there was evictions, I told people, do not worry about your eviction. Here's what you do. You answer, you ask for a jury trial. Boom, this is going to get thrown off in the future. So people did. And then the Judicial Council came in and said, we're not going to allow any issuance of summonses in unlawful detainer cases. So that stopped the eviction tsunami. Then the Judicial Council they said, hey, why are you making us do this dirty work for the state of California? State, come in here with a rule because we're going to allow summonses to issue. So the state said, well, okay, we're going to fashion this rule where people, if they pay 25% of their rent, they can't be evicted. We'll figure out later how you get your money, landlords. We'll let you sue in small claims court for it. And so that lasted 13 months. And now we're at the final stage of what I believe is that whole scheme, is they're making landlords, in order to get a summons for an eviction case, to actually have applied for housing assistance. So you can't just have a cranky landlord who wants his money, but what he really, really wants is the tenant to be gone. So now they have to show they have applied for eviction relief, rent relief, and also that the tenant has. And it stopped evictions. And I've talked to other practitioners on both sides. And I talked to a good friend of mine who does evictions for the landlord. And he just says, even now, there's just a general queasiness of going in. They're losing all these cases if they have to do with rent. So they are not bringing them. The eviction cases that happened during the pandemic were things like you're creating a nuisance.
Not dollars related.
Right, but even there was a moratorium that said no nuisance evictions. But that was just an affirmative defense and some courts didn't buy it. And maybe there was a breach of the lease. You have 18 cats, and that's a breach of your lease, but you couldn't evict for pets during the pandemic either. So there was a bunch of little kind of niche unlawful detainer issues. Most of them got thrown out. I didn't go to trial on anything during the pandemic. So
there's this whole backlog of evictions. What's going to happen to them if there's not a tsunami? Are people just going to wind up staying longer than they would have?
Well, there's not a tsunami of evictions because the landlords are getting their money. There's billions of dollars to be given to landlords now who didn't get rent. And so hopefully, everyone should be happy. It's like, oh, okay, we got our money. But when all this starts, what will start up again, when the whole COVID scheme ends, what's going to start up again, which will happen in Los Angeles and other places that have rent control, are Ellis Act evictions, owner move-in evictions, which have generally been placed on ice during the pandemic. An Ellis Act eviction, if you don't know, is where the landlord decides, I have got the right to and want to go out of the rental housing business. And I'm going to take my apartment and have all the tenants leave and just let it sit empty. Some people want to do that. Okay. There's a very interesting case called Nash versus City of Santa Monica, which gave rise to the whole Ellis Act. You might read it sometime. So that's something that happens. And of course, landlords want to do that because maybe they have other plans. It's going to be a family compound, or maybe they're just going to let it sit empty for 5 years, at which point they can raise the rents to market. And for some landlords, that makes economic sense, sadly.
And you mentioned a general queasiness on the part of landlords that may not want to initiate action because they figure there's got to be some law still hanging out there, some ordinance, some way I'm going to get denied relief. So they figure, why bother?
That's definitely true in the city of Los Angeles. We have our own special anti-eviction ordinance here during the local emergency period, which has no end yet. So even though it only creates an affirmative defense, which in my opinion is a tough affirmative defense to show that the reason you're not paying your rent in October, November is directly related to the pandemic. Today, with so many people, employers looking for work, I think that's going to be a very hard burden to meet. But my friend in the landlord's bar says we don't want to go there. There's a feeling that we're just not going to win. So that's what's going on right now. I think when all the local moratoria expire and the local laws expire, the local city laws expire, then you're going to start seeing evictions for non-payment again. And I think that's going to be fairly soon in the next few months. But I still don't think it's going to be a tsunami. Most people have gotten money from the government that's set aside for exactly this purpose. So that's where I come out on it. The government did a really fantastic job of stopping the eviction tsunami.